Hello, my name is Jan Cooper. Some people say my initials spell my name. J for Jan, A for Argel, N for Nance, and C for Cooper. And so the initials are JC. Some people call me Jan, some people call me Dr. Jan. It all depends on the circumstances. For 35 years, I was a teacher, and I taught painting and drawing, and then I retired, and then that way I've been in so many different schools, and I draw people's names because I love to do it.
Dr. Jan Cooper has been drawing people's names for decades, a true testament to his deep-rooted love for art. In fact, his passion is so fierce, it's hard to believe he wasn't always this spirited about art, writing, or just about anything.
When I was a young boy, I didn't care for it too much. All my parents did was yell, scream, holler, and fight. My dad called me a dumb shit. And, every now and then, even though I'm close to 80 now, I'll be 80 in July, every now and then you still get that little glimpse of that. But I proved myself. I'm not. But it goes to show you how if you're treated one certain way, some people go one way and some people go the other way. And I just thank God on a daily basis, I started improving and listening to people of wisdom, and so I could grow stronger and bigger and fly like an eagle.
Writing, much like Dr. Jan's encounter with art, came pretty unexpectedly, especially since he had flunked English 3 times. But failures are always outweighed by experiences, a concept Dr. Jan is very much familiar with.
My biggest purpose in becoming an author, I think, is becoming a storyteller. What I found out being an artist and being an author, for some reason, I love looking at a blank page. I love looking at a blank canvas. And I love taking that blankness and not knowing what's going to come out. I just start creating from a blank canvas and creating something out of nothing. It's so exciting. It's fun to be a creator.
Sometimes Dr. Jan likes to call himself a creator more than an artist or author. But whichever way he chooses to express himself, it's clear only he could tell his story best.
I think people who paint, who write, who speak or write books, they all have a story to tell, and what it is, it's a healing journey.
Dr. Jan started sitting down on Fridays, fervently writing down his thoughts and feelings, pouring his soul and all his emotions, good and bad, into his writing, without the slightest idea that the notes he would keep were bound to be published someday, because he just wouldn't give up on life.
I was just letting out the pain, and by letting out the pain, I found out the gain that it causes, because it helps you to go secure. It helps you to grow positive. But when a person's in pain, don't ever give up. Because you see, it's like, to me, like figs. By writing, by painting, by drawing, by expressing yourself, look at the word figs. It helps you overcome fear. It helps you overcome insecurities. It helps you overcome guilt. And it helps you overcome self-doubt. And that way you can fly like an eagle to try and help others paint pictures so they won't ever feel that way when they're young.
And now, as a wordsmith with several publications under his belt, Dr. Jan is honored to officially be called an author.
Being an author to me, it's not quite exactly like I imagined it, but what I did imagine and what really feels good. is I remember the first time when one of my books, I did a book signing at Barnes & Noble. That was exciting to me for some reason. Going into a bookstore and actually seeing your book there with thousands of other authors, and you know when your book is put on that shelf, hey, you're part of one of those authors. And it just feels good knowing that you're telling your story to try and help better another person's life through a story. That's all.
Unfortunately, Dr. Jan was not spared the hardships and drawbacks that a lot of self-published authors go through.
The major drawbacks when it came to thinking about putting a book together, I tried going to a lot of different publishers. And I found out that there were a lot of publishers that took advantage of authors. And so someday I really want to write a book about, to protect authors, I want to help them so they don't waste their money. I want them to put their time and their skills together in finding the right publisher. I went through so many publishers, and I think they were just taking my money. That's what I felt. I didn't, or they should have told me what else I should have done. But I found out most people spend their money in wrong directions. They should be putting it in, and once you write a book, you got to make sure everything is edited right. All the words have to be spelled correctly. It has to have the right cover, because the cover gets your attention right away. And so then you have to promote the book and promote it and promote it and promote it until it becomes successful. That's one of the main things that I learned about writing a book.
Despite the hiccups that Dr. Jan had to work through, he stayed true to his belief of never giving up. He owes this hopefulness, he says, to his unwavering belief in God.
Well, hey, I always have believed in God, and I believe He's put me through every single purpose. I had to go through an unhappy childhood to grow strong and positive because He had plans for me. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. And I can see all the people that I have helped in the process. I know God's been rewarding me because I can see how I live now. Not many people as an artist or as an author get to live as I live. And I got on my knees one day and I said, Lord, I'm not sure you exist. This was when I was young, but if you do, please make me good at something so I can do what you want me to do.
God has given Dr. Jan and his family so many blessings that he just wants to help and inspire others. He believes that God took him, a person who had failed English several times, and turned him into an author so he could give other people hope.
Tell your story, never give up. If you want to write a book, keep writing and writing, and over a period of 50 years, you learn how to put the right punctuation marks in. You learn how to spell the right words, and you learn how to tell your story and tell it in your style, nobody else's style. Don't try to be another author. Don't try to be another artist. Don't try to be another entertainer. Be yourself. That's all you can be.
Dr. Jan has also been blessed with a wonderful family. His wife, Sandy, has been God's greatest gift.
Please give me the right mate that you want me to have. And he did. I've been with my wife now. We've been together 48 years. And we love each other. We still have date night. The way we met, really we shouldn't be together in most cases for this reason. Because when we met, I was taking a rose to somebody else. And I actually walked by a jewelry store and I saw a pocket watch in the window. And when I saw that pocket watch, I walked inside the jewelry store. And when I walked in, I saw the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. And she said, well, what are you doing here? And why do you have a rose in your hand? I said, well, I was taking this to meet somebody at the restaurant across the street. And she said, if it doesn't work out, why don't you come back?
Dr. Jan did end up going back, and that night, he and Sandy went at it on the phone for almost an hour, until he heard something in the background.
And I said, what's that? She said, well, those are my kids. I said, I'm sorry, lady, I don't date women with kids. And I hung up the phone.
But Sandy was the very answer to Dr. Jan's prayers, and it wouldn't take long for him to realize this.
Well, I went out to my patio. I was sipping on a few glasses of wine, and I kept watching the tennis ball go back and forth and back and forth. And it reminded me how I was bouncing from one relationship to another. I got on the phone. I called her. I said, please don't hang up. She answered the phone. I said, please don't hang up. Please listen to what I have to say. So I called her. We talked, and I said, I hung up on you. Most women would have slapped me or hung up on me and not answered. Can we at least get together and talk for an hour or a half hour tomorrow? She said, yeah, come on over. I knocked on the door when I got there, and I said, now don't let me come in. I got to know why, after I hung up on you, you let me come over. She said, you were honest with me. You were honest with me. I've dated businessmen. I even dated the owner of a football team. And I was introduced to you. And hey, we've been together ever since. We've been together 48 years now, married 45.
Dr. Jan and Sandy's love story was so inspiring that Dr. Jan's publisher saw its potential as a children's book.
My publisher happened to read one or more of my books. I got a phone call, and she called me and said, I would like to meet you. So she came and met with me and all that. And then after she met me, she took off for a month or two, and then she called back and said, I would like to come and spend some time with you. My publisher ended up staying with me for a week, with me and my family. And so she got to know us. And that was the exciting part. She got to know us. She sort of became, and we became more like family. We found out we had common interests, common desires. Well, she took off again, and she called back and said, I want you to write a children's book about you and your wife. I said, well, I've never written a children's book before. She says, all you have to do is tell your story. So anyway, that's how it happened. I can't plan things like that. God planned it.
This encounter in Dr. Jan's life just goes to show how God has plans for you, and how if you make a mistake, He still accepts you and will give you what you asked for in the first place.
What God has showed me, that I wasn't dumb and stupid, He's allowed me to become a creator. He's allowed me not only to become an artist, but He's allowed me to become an author too. And what proved all of this to me, back in the early 80s, I had my own TV show, interviewing artists and authors on cable right in Sacramento, California. That made me feel good. Then I had the opportunity to become the ventriloquist on a children's TV show called What If? It only lasted a year or two, but then I had the opportunity to entertain a couple of times on cruise ships. And it just goes to show me how God gave me the faith and the ability to take those challenges. So He proved to me that I'm not dumb and stupid.
When the pandemic hit, Dr. Jan became even more connected with his thoughts, and he set out to write down his realizations, resulting in the creation of 2 more books.
During the pandemic, I already had close to over 40 years of writing experience by then. And when the pandemic hit, I had bad thoughts, I had good thoughts, I had in-between thoughts, I had conspiracy thoughts. I wrote the book called Arise, Concerned Citizens Arise. Because to me, I was just a concerned citizen, and I was concerned with what was happening. So all the thoughts that were going through my mind, I don't believe I could have written this. I'm not smart enough. But I felt like the Holy Spirit was going through me, causing me to write what was in Arise, Concerned Citizens, Arise. And then the pandemic went on and lasted longer than I thought, and I had more thoughts, and so I wrote, Unite, Seniors Unite, because something's going on. And so all I was doing was expressing my thoughts.
Dr. Jan has had his fair share of ups and downs ever since he was a little boy. Though he didn't know if God truly existed, owing to an upbringing that didn't introduce his presence, all it took was Dr. Jan's answered prayers to know for himself that he did in fact exist and that he was at work in his life.
He turned me into a creator, and I promised him I'd bring more people to him because I saw what he's done in my life. And I want him to do that in other people's lives too. It's just too important. It's just too important. So please get on your knees. Get on your knees and say, hey, I don't know if you exist, but if you do, show me what you can do in my life. And he will open doors for you. I guarantee that, because I don't know how the doors opened. They just started opening once I told him I would bring people to him. That's all I know.
He wishes to impart some important knowledge to those who might currently be treading the same paths he did on his journey to becoming an author.
Authors, if you want to publish a book, this is where my main thinking should help you to take place. You might not consider yourself an author now. All you're trying to do is to heal yourself on your journey. I suggest pick Friday night, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, and just start writing. What you're doing is getting what I call the garbage out of your life, and you're creating new. So you're putting down what is going through your mind. And when you're writing down, it's letting that garbage or that evil stuff out of your life. And once you get that evil out, look at the word evil, spell it backwards. It spells live. Then you can live and have the happy, content life that God wanted you to have in the first place. See, most people are stressed. And when you write, you're getting rid of that stress. Look at the word stressed. When you spell stress backwards, it spells desserts. God wants you to partake of the desserts of life, not stress. He wants you to get rid of that. Because you see, when you become and look at what was considered to be the evil in your life, and you see it backwards and spell live, it opens opportunities and it changes the way you think. And if you do now what you're supposed to do and write and do that on a steady basis, look at the word now, spell it backwards, then you've won.
Dr. Jan is thankful that God has led him into meeting the people who had the same faith as him, believed in his works, and who wouldn't take advantage of the trust he was always ready to give.
My publisher has done a lot for me. First of all, she happened to read some of my books and fell in love with my books. Then she contacted me, and after contacting me, we became friends. And after that, it's become like we're almost a family member. She looks at me like a dad. I look at her like a daughter. She just fell in love with my books. That's how it all started. And then I started following in love what she was doing with me. And, you know, I do love her like a daughter. But the reason she contacted me, most publishers didn't ask to come and get to know me after reading a book. She called and asked, I want to get to know you personally. And so by me getting to know her personally and her getting to know me personally, she's able to share my books with people, not just in the States, but around the world. So I really thank her for that, and that you have the opportunity to tell your story too. And right now she's preparing me and showing me how to do a podcast. And here I am, almost 80 years old, and I'm going to be giving podcasts and sharing with you the opportunities that she's made happen for me.
Dr. Jan is showing no signs of stepping off his journey towards realizing all of his life's dreams. And as the days come and go, he will continue beaming as a light of inspiration to anyone who comes to know him and his works.